The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, is a specialized agency of the United Nations, UN, with the aim of promoting world peace and security through international cooperation in education, arts, sciences, and culture. It has 194 member states and 12 associate members, as well as partners in the non-governmental, intergovernmental, and private sector. Headquartered in Paris, France, UNESCO has 53 regional field offices and 199 national commissions. UNESCO was founded in 1945 as the successor to the League of Nations International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation. UNESCO's founding mission, which was shaped by the events of World War II, is to advance peace, sustainable development, and human rights by facilitating collaboration and dialogue among nations. It pursues this objective through 5 major program areas: education, natural sciences, social/human sciences, culture, and communication/information. UNESCO sponsors projects that improve literacy, provide technical training and education, advance science, protect independent media and press freedom, preserve regional and cultural history, and promote cultural diversity. The organization prominently helps establish and secure World Heritage Sites of cultural and natural importance. UNESCO is governed by the General Conference composed of member states and associate members, which meets biannually to set the agency's programs and budget. It also elects members of the Executive Board, which manages UNESCO's work, and appoints every 4 years a Director General, who serves as UNESCO's chief administrator. UNESCO and its mandate for international cooperation can be traced back to a League of Nations resolution on September 21, 1921, to elect a commission to study the feasibility of having nations freely share cultural, educational, and scientific achievements. This new body, the International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation, ICIC, was created in 1922-17 and counted such figures as Henry Bergson, Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, Robert A. Millikan, and Gonzague de Reynold among its members, being thus a small commission of the League of Nations essentially centered on Western Europe. The International Institute for Intellectual Cooperation, IIIC, was then created in Paris in September 1924, to act as the executing agency for the ICIC. However, the onset of World War II largely interrupted the work of these predecessor organizations. As for private initiatives, the International Bureau of Education, IBE, began to work as a non-governmental organization in the service of international educational development since December 1925 and joined UNESCO in 1969, after having established a joint commission in 1952. Creation. After the signing of the Atlantic Charter and the Declaration of the United Nations, the Conference of Allied Ministers of Education, CAME, began meetings in London which continued from November 16, 1942 to December 5, 1945. On October 30, 1943, the necessity for an international organization was expressed in the Moscow Declaration, agreed upon by China, the United Kingdom, the United States and the USSR. This was followed by the Dumbarton Oaks Conference proposals of October 9, 1944. Upon the proposal of CAME and in accordance with the recommendations of the United Nations Conference on International Organization, UNCIO, held in San Francisco from April to June 1945, a United Nations Conference for the establishment of an educational and cultural organization, ECO/CONF, was convened in London from 1 to November 16, 1945 with 44 governments represented. The idea of UNESCO was largely developed by Rab Butler, the Minister of Education for the United Kingdom, who had a great deal of influence in its development. At the ECO/CONF, the Constitution of UNESCO was introduced and signed by 37 countries, and a preparatory commission was established. The preparatory commission operated between November 16, 1945, and November 4, 1946, the date when UNESCO's constitution came into force with the deposit of the 20th ratification by a member state. The first General Conference took place from November 19 to December 10, 1946, and elected Julian Huxley to Director General. United States Army Colonel, University President, and civil rights advocate Blake R. Van Leer joined as a member as well. The Constitution was amended in November 1954 when the General Conference resolved that members of the Executive Board would be representatives of the governments of the states of which they are nationals and would not, as before, act in their personal capacity. This change in governance distinguished UNESCO from its predecessor, the ICIC, in how member states would work together in the organization's fields of competence. As member states worked together over time to realize UNESCO's mandate, political and historical factors have shaped the organization's operations, in particular during the Cold War, the decolonization process, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Development. Among the major achievements of the organization is its work against racism, for example through influential statements on race, starting with a declaration of anthropologists, among them was Claude Lévi-Strauss, and other scientists in 1950, and concluding with the 1978 Declaration on Race and Racial Prejudice. 31. In 1955, the Republic of South Africa withdrew from UNESCO, saying that some of the organization's publications amounted to interference in the country's racial problems. It rejoined the organization in 1994 under the leadership of Nelson Mandela. One of the early work of UNESCO in the education field was a pilot project on fundamental education in the Marbelle Valley, Haiti, which was launched in 1947. Following this project, one of expert missions to other countries included a 1949 mission to Afghanistan. UNESCO recommended in 1948 that member countries should make free primary education compulsory and universal. The World Conference on Education for All, in Jomtien, Thailand, started a global movement in 1990 to provide basic education for all children, youths, and adults. In 2000, World Education Forum in Dakar, Senegal, led member governments to commit for achieving basic education for all in 2015. The World Declaration on Higher Education was adopted by UNESCO's World Conference on Higher Education on October 9, 1998, with the aim of setting global standards on the ideals and accessibility of higher education. UNESCO's early activities in culture included the International Campaign to Save the Monuments of Nubia, launched in 1960. The purpose of the campaign was to move the Great Temple of Abu Simbel to keep it from being swamped by the Nile after the construction of the Aswan Dam. During the 20-year campaign, 22 monuments and architectural complexes were relocated. This was the first and largest in a series of campaigns including Mohenjo-Daro, Pakistan, Fes, Morocco, Kathmandu, Nepal, Borobudur, Indonesia, and the Acropolis of Athens, Greece. The organization's work on heritage led to the adoption, in 1972, of the Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage. In 1976, the World Heritage Committee was established and the first sites were included on the World Heritage List in 1978. Since then, important legal instruments on cultural heritage and diversity have been adopted by UNESCO member states. In 2003, Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, and 2005, Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. An intergovernmental meeting of UNESCO in Paris in December 1951 led to the creation of the European Council for Nuclear Research, which was responsible for establishing the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, later on, in 1954. Arid Zone Programming, 1948 to 1966, is another example of an early major UNESCO project in the field of natural sciences. In 1968, UNESCO organized the first intergovernmental conference aimed at reconciling the environment and development, a problem that continues to be addressed in the field of sustainable development. The main outcome of the 1968 conference was the creation of UNESCO's Man and the Biosphere program. UNESCO has been credited with the diffusion of national science bureaucracies. In the field of communication, The free flow of ideas by word and image has been in UNESCO's constitution since it was established, following the experience of the Second World War when control of information was a factor in indoctrinating populations for aggression. In the years immediately following World War II, efforts were concentrated on reconstruction and on the identification of needs for means of mass communication around the world. UNESCO started organizing training and education for journalists in the 1950s. In response to calls for a new world information and communication order in the late 1970s, UNESCO established the International Commission for the Study of Communication Problems, which produced the 1980 McBride Report, named after the chair of the commission, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Sean McBride. The same year, UNESCO created the International Programme for the Development of Communication, IPDC, a multilateral forum designed to promote media development in developing countries. In 1993, UNESCO's General Conference endorsed the Windhoek Declaration on Media Independence and Pluralism, which led the UN General Assembly to declare the date of its adoption, May 3, as World Press Freedom Day. 51 Since 1997, UNESCO has awarded the UNESCO/Guillermo Quino World Press Freedom Prize every May 3. UNESCO admitted Palestine as a member in 2011. Laws passed in the United States after Palestine applied for UNESCO and WHO membership in April 1989 mean that the U.S. cannot contribute financially to any UN organization that accepts Palestine as a full member. As a result, the U.S. withdrew its funding, which had accounted for about 22% of UNESCO's budget. Israel also reacted to Palestine's admittance to UNESCO by freezing Israeli payments to UNESCO and imposing sanctions on the Palestinian Authority, stating that Palestine's admittance would be detrimental to potential peace talks. 2 years after they stopped paying their dues to UNESCO, the US and Israel lost UNESCO voting rights in 2013 without losing the right to be elected. Thus, the US was elected as a member of the executive board for the period 2016 to 19. In 2019, Israel left UNESCO after 69 years of membership, with Israel's ambassador to the UN Danny Danon writing, UNESCO is the body that continually rewrites history, including by erasing the Jewish connection to Jerusalem. It is corrupted and manipulated by Israel's enemies. We are not going to be a member of an organization that deliberately acts against us. 2023 saw Russia excluded from the Executive Committee for the first time, after failing to get sufficient votes. Activities. UNESCO implements its activities through the 5 program areas: education, natural sciences, social and human sciences, culture and communication and information. Thank you for watching this video.